buried beneath the snow, frozen and lifeless, until the human and his dog found her. The bitter wind howled across the frozen wasteland of Nova Terra, whipping snow into deadly, beautiful patterns against the darkening sky. Tom Bridges trudged through knee-deep drifts, his German shepherd Ajax leading the way through the growing storm. The setting suns cast an eerie purple glow across the endless white expanse, turning the crystalline surface into a sea of shimmering amethyst. Tom adjusted his thermal coat, grateful for its warmth. At 6'2", with broad shoulders and a muscular build earned from years of frontier life, he cut an impressive figure against the stark landscape. His dark brown beard, neatly trimmed despite his isolation, collected tiny ice crystals that glinted in the fading light. "Come on, boy, he called to Ajax. "Let's get home before the storm really hits." The dog suddenly stopped and head low and ears forward. Tom knew that posture. Ajax had caught something interesting. The shepherd began pawing at the snow, whining with increasing urgency. "What is it, boy?" Tom moved closer, curious about what had captured his companion's attention. The dog's behavior grew more frantic as he dug deeper into the snow. Tom knelt beside Ajax, his gloved hands joining in the excavation. The wind howled louder, driving ice crystals against his face, but he persisted. Something about Ajax's determination told him this was important. His fingers struck something solid yet yielding. Brushing away more snow revealed a pale blue hand. Holy shit! Tom's heart jumped. He dug faster, uncovering more of what lay buried. A slender arm emerged, then shoulders and finally a face. She was breathtaking, even in what appeared to be death. Her skin was a delicate shade of blue, like morning frost on glass. Long, dark blue hair fanned out around her head like a frozen halo. She wore what had once been an elegant brown thermal suit, now torn and covered in ice. Tom pressed 2 fingers to her neck, searching for a pulse. Nothing. But her skin, it wasn't as cold as it should have been after being buried in snow. Could she still be alive? "Ajax, help me!" He began clearing more snow from around her body. The storm was intensifying, and he knew they'd all die if they stayed exposed much longer. His cabin was still a good 20 minutes away. Making a quick decision, Tom gathered the mysterious woman in his arms. She was lighter than he expected, almost fragile. Ajax pressed close to his leg as they pushed through the deepening snow, fighting against the wind that threatened to knock them over. By the time they reached his cabin, Tom could barely feel his fingers. He shouldered open the door, grateful for the rush of warm air that greeted them. The woman still hadn't moved or shown any signs of life, but something told him not to give up. He laid her gently on his bed and began removing her frozen outer garments. "Stay with me," he muttered, though he wasn't sure if he was talking to her or himself. Ajax watched from nearby, tail wagging slowly as if he understood the gravity of the situation. Tom knew the basics of treating hypothermia. Warm the core body temperature gradually, prevent further heat loss. He wrapped her in thermal blankets and, after a moment's hesitation, stripped down to his base layer and lay beside her. Body heat was the most effective treatment he had available, and Ajax joined them, adding his warmth to the effort. Hours passed as the storm raged outside, rattling the cabin's reinforced windows. Tom dozed fitfully, always maintaining contact, willing his warmth into her still form. A soft moan woke him. The woman stirred slightly, her eyelids fluttering. Tom propped himself up on one elbow, watching intently as awareness slowly returned to her features. Her eyes opened, revealing irises the color of deep space, purple-black with tiny points of light like distant stars. She gasped, trying to sit up, but Tom gently restrained her. "Easy," he said softly. "You're safe. I found you buried in the snow." She stared at him, confusion evident in those remarkable eyes. When she spoke, her voice was barely a whisper, but the universal translator in his ear converted her words to standard English. I remember the storm. I was so tired. I just needed to rest for a moment." "That moment nearly killed you," Tom said, unable to keep a note of relief from his voice. "I'm Tom Bridges. The furry hero who found you is Ajax." A ghost of a smile touched her pale lips. "Kyla," she managed. "Kyla Nix." Thank you for saving my life." Before Tom could respond, exhaustion claimed her again, but this time her breathing was steady and strong. He carefully adjusted the blankets around her and settled back, maintaining his protective position. Ajax rested his head on the bed, brown eyes fixed on their unexpected guest. Tom scratched behind the dog's ears. "Good boy," he whispered. "Very good boy." Outside, the storm continued its assault on the frozen world, but inside the cabin, warmth and life prevailed against the cold void of space. The storm raged through the night, but inside Tom's cabin, a different kind of warmth was growing. Kyla's recovery progressed steadily as the twin suns rose, painting the snow-covered landscape in shades of amber and rose. She sat propped up in Tom's bed, wrapped in thermal blankets, while he prepared a hot beverage in the cabin's compact kitchen. Ajax hadn't left Kyla's side since her rescue, his protective instincts fully engaged. She ran her slender blue fingers through his thick fur, marveling at the texture. "We don't have creatures like him on my world," she said, her voice stronger now. "Our companions are more ethereal." Tom brought over 2 steaming mugs, handing one to Kyla. "Careful, it's hot. It's an earth drink called coffee. I grow it in my hydroponics bay." She accepted the mug, her fingers brushing against his. The contact sent a subtle current through them both. Tom noticed how her star-filled eyes widened slightly at the touch. "Your temperature runs much warmer than mine," she observed, studying him with open curiosity. "My people, the Nixians, evolved in a colder climate. We rarely experience such heat." The way she said the last word carried an undertone that made Tom's pulse quicken. He settled into a chair near the bed, trying to maintain a professional demeanor. "That explains why you survived being buried in the snow. A human wouldn't have lasted nearly as long." "Yes, but we're not invulnerable to cold. Extended exposure can still be fatal." Kyla sipped the coffee, her expression brightening. "This is fascinating. The molecular structure seems to interact directly with our pleasure centers." Tom chuckled. "That's one way to describe caffeine, though I've never thought about it in quite those terms." "Humans are remarkably adaptable," Kyla continued, her gaze traveling over his features with undisguised interest. "You've colonized worlds across the galaxy, thriving in environments that would challenge even my species. And yet," she paused, seeming to search for words, "and yet, you maintain such warmth. Not just physical temperature, but," she gestured vaguely, "your emotions, your connections, the way you didn't hesitate to share your body heat to save a stranger. Most species would have calculated the risks, weighed the potential benefits against the dangers." Tom shifted in his chair, suddenly very aware of their proximity. "It was the right thing to do. Simple as that." "Nothing about you is simple, Tom Bridges." Kyla's voice had dropped to a near whisper. "You intrigue me. My people are taught that humans are impulsive, driven by base instincts. But you..." She set down her coffee and leaned forward slightly. "You show remarkable restraint." The air between them seemed to crackle with unspoken possibilities. Tom cleared his throat. "Speaking of restraint, you should rest more. Your body is still recovering. My body is doing exactly what it needs to do." Kyla's star-filled eyes held his gaze. "Did you know that Nixians have a fascinating biological response to near-death experiences? Once we begin to recover, our systems flood with chemicals designed to ensure the continuation of our species." Tom's mouth went dry. "That's interesting from a scientific perspective." "Oh yes, very scientific." A smile played at her pale blue lips. "These chemicals heighten our awareness of potential mates, particularly those who have demonstrated genetic strength and protective instincts." "Kyla," Tom started, but she continued, "it's quite remarkable how compatible our species are, despite our differences. Your higher body temperature, for instance, would create fascinating biochemical reactions during intimate contact." Tom stood abruptly, needing to put some distance between them. "You're still recovering. We shouldn't..." "Shouldn't what?" Kyla's voice held a teasing note. Discuss xenobiology? Or are you afraid of other reactions? He turned to face her, struck again by her otherworldly beauty. The morning light played across her blue skin, making it shimmer like Arctic ice. Her dark blue hair had dried into elegant waves that framed her face perfectly. I'm afraid of taking advantage, he admitted. You've been through a traumatic experience. Kyla laughed, a sound like crystal wind chimes. Oh, Tom, your human morality is endearing, but unnecessary. My people don't share your concepts of trauma and recovery. We embrace life-changing experiences, particularly ones that bring us into contact with fascinating new possibilities. She pushed the blankets aside and stood, revealing the form-fitting thermal undersuit she still wore. Her movements were graceful, deliberate, as she approached him. Ajax watched with his head tilted, apparently unconcerned by this development. My body temperature has nearly normalized, she said, standing close enough that Tom could feel the cool radiance of her skin. Would you like to verify for yourself? Tom swallowed hard. This isn't just the biochemical reaction you mentioned. That's part of it, she admitted, but not all. There's something about you, Tom Bridges, something that calls to me on a level deeper than mere biology. She reached up, tracing the line of his beard with cool fingers. The touch sent electricity down his spine. Your restraint, your kindness, your strength, these are qualities my people value highly in a mate. Mate? Tom caught her hand but didn't push it away. That's a significant term. Is it? Kyla stepped closer, eliminating the last space between them. Tell me, why did you really save me? Pure altruism? Or did something in you recognize something in me? The question hung in the air between them, heavy with possibility. Tom realized he was still holding her hand, her cool skin warming slightly against his palm. The contrast was intoxicating. I saved you because it was right, he said finally. But I won't deny there's something here, something I don't fully understand. Understanding can come later, Kyla murmured, her free hand sliding up his chest. Right now, I'm more interested in exploration, unless your human morality objects. Tom looked into her star-filled eyes, seeing the genuine desire there, the fascinating blend of alien perspective and very human passion. His restraint, already stretched thin, finally snapped. Their first kiss was like touching a flame to ice, a meeting of opposites that created something entirely new. Her cool lips warmed against his, their different body temperatures creating an exquisite contrast that heightened every sensation. Ajax, displaying excellent timing, decided this was the perfect moment to go investigate his food bowl in the kitchen. The rest of the morning passed in a blur of discovery and delight as they explored their differences and similarities, finding unexpected harmony in their contrasts. Their joining was both tender and passionate, a bridge between worlds that neither had known they were seeking until that moment. Later, as they lay tangled in the thermal blankets, Kyla traced patterns on Tom's chest with her cooling touch. Your heart beats faster than mine, she observed. Everything about you burns so bright, so warm. Is that a good thing? Tom asked, running his fingers through her star-dark hair. It's perfect, she murmured. You're rewriting everything I thought I knew about humans, about connection, about warmth. Outside, the storm had finally passed, leaving behind a world transformed by fresh snow. Inside, two beings from different worlds had found their own transformation, one that would continue to unfold in ways neither could yet imagine. Days melted into each other like snowflakes on warm skin as Tom and Kyla settled into a comfortable routine in the cabin. The initial intensity of their attraction evolved into something deeper, more profound. Ajax had fully accepted Kyla as part of their small family, often curling up at her feet during the long evenings they spent sharing stories of their vastly different worlds. Tell me more about your hydroponics bay, Kyla requested one morning, watching Tom tend to his plants. Her natural curiosity about human technology never ceased to amaze him. On Nyx, we commune with our food sources telepathically. Tom chuckled, adjusting the nutrient flow to his coffee plants. Earth technology is more hands-on. We've perfected these systems over centuries of space colonization. Each plant requires specific conditions, temperature, humidity, light cycles. Kyla approached from behind, wrapping her cool arms around his waist. The temperature difference between them had become a source of constant pleasure rather than surprise. Your attention to detail is fascinating. Humans have such patience for mechanical things. Speaking of details, Tom turned to face her, noting subtle changes in her appearance. Her blue skin had taken on a peculiar luminescence over the past few days, and her star-filled eyes seemed to shimmer with new constellations. "You're different somehow." A mysterious smile played across her lips. "You notice everything, don't you?" "Yes, I'm experiencing some changes. My body is adapting to our physical compatibility in unexpected ways." Tom raised an eyebrow. "Should I be concerned?" "Quite the opposite." Kyla guided his hand to her abdomen, where a faint warmth radiated, unusual for her typically cool skin. "My species has a remarkable ability to adapt to genetic potential. When we find a suitable mate, our biology shifts to accommodate successful reproduction." The implication hit Tom like a blast of Arctic air. "Are you saying that my body is preparing itself to carry a hybrid child?" "Yes." Her expression was serene, but her eyes danced with excitement. "It's extraordinarily rare for Nixians to achieve genetic compatibility with other species, and the fact that it's happening speaks volumes about human adaptability and your particular genetic strength." Tom steadied himself against the hydroponics console, mind reeling. "But we've only been together for a short time, and the biological differences—" "Time means little to my people when it comes to matters of procreation," Kyla explained, running her cool fingers through his beard. "When we recognize ideal genetic potential, our bodies respond accordingly. The changes I'm experiencing indicate that successful conception is not only possible but likely. And you're okay with this?" Tom searched her alien features, still amazed by how he could read her expressions despite their differences. "More than okay. Among my people, this would be celebrated as a remarkable achievement. A union capable of producing viable offspring across species is considered the highest form of evolutionary success." She paused in studying his reaction. "But perhaps human perspectives differ?" Tom took a deep breath, processing the information. "Humans typically prefer more planning when it comes to parenthood. But then again, nothing about our situation has been typical, has it?" Kyla laughed, the sound like ice crystals chiming. "Your species thrives on adapting to the unexpected. It's one of your most attractive qualities." Her expression grew more serious. "However, there's something else you should know." She led him to the cabin's main living area, where Ajax immediately joined them on the comfortable seating area. Nixian pregnancies are different from human ones. The developing child will require specific environmental conditions, particularly in a hybrid situation. "What kind of conditions?" Tom asked, already mentally cataloging the cabin's environmental controls. "Lower temperatures for one. My body temperature will continue to drop as the pregnancy progresses. It's a natural process for us, but it might be challenging for you." Tom thought about the implications. "We'll need to modify the cabin's climate zones. I can maintain normal temperatures in my work areas while cooling the living spaces to suit your needs." Kyla's eyes sparkled with new starlight. "You would do that? Adapt your entire living space?" "Of course." Tom squeezed her hand, marveling at how right it felt despite the temperature difference. "You adapted your entire biology for us. Some climate control adjustments seem like the least I can do in return." Tears like tiny diamonds formed in Kyla's eyes. "This is why humans continue to amaze us. Your capacity for acceptance, for adaptation, it's boundless." Their conversation was interrupted by Ajax's sudden alert barking. The dog rushed to the window, tail wagging excitedly. Outside, the aurora borealis had begun its daily dance across the sky. But something was different. The lights seemed to respond to Kyla's presence, swirling in unusual patterns. "Another side effect," Kyla explained, watching the lights with evident pleasure. "Nixian biology has a unique relationship with electromagnetic fields. During pregnancy, we can influence them unconsciously. Tom watched in awe as the northern lights performed an impossible ballet, creating shapes and patterns he'd never seen in his years on this planet. "It's beautiful," he murmured, pulling Kyla close. "It's a sign," she said softly. "My people believe that when the sky responds to a life-bearing union, it presages great things for the child." They stood together watching the light show, while Ajax moved between them, offering his own warmth. Tom realized that his life had changed irrevocably from the moment he discovered Kyla in the snow. What had started as a simple rescue had evolved into something profound. A bridge between species, a new form of family, a future he'd never imagined possible. Later that night, as they lay together in the carefully temperature-controlled bedroom, Kyla traced the patterns of the aurora on Tom's chest with her cool fingers. "I never told you why I was really out in that storm," she said quietly. Tom propped himself up on an elbow, intrigued. "I assumed you were lost or your transport malfunctioned." "Not exactly," she smiled enigmatically. "My people have predictive abilities. Not precise visions, but strong intuitions about where we need to be at crucial moments. I knew someone important was waiting for me out there in the snow. I just didn't expect." She gestured to her subtly glowing abdomen. "You deliberately went out in a blizzard based on a feeling?" Tom asked, incredulous. "Would you have preferred I hadn't?" Her star-filled eyes twinkled with mischief. "Point taken." He pulled her closer, their temperature difference creating that now familiar exquisite contrast. "Though next time you have a predictive feeling, maybe wait for better weather?" "Next time?" Kyla laughed. "Planning for more life-changing encounters, are we?" "With you?" "I'm learning to expect the unexpected." Outside, the aurora continued its celebration, painting the snow-covered landscape in colors that had never existed before their union. Inside, two beings from different worlds dreamed of the future they would create together, a future that would redefine what was possible when love crossed the boundaries of species and space. The transformation of Tom's cabin into distinct climate zones proved more challenging than anticipated. While he worked on installing advanced thermal barriers between rooms, Kyla's body temperature continued to drop, her skin taking on an ethereal, crystalline quality that caught and refracted light in mesmerizing ways. "The environmental controls in the bedroom are stable now," Tom announced, wiping sweat from his brow as he finished calibrating the last sensor. The room maintained a crisp -15 degrees Celsius, comfortable for Kyla's changing physiology, but requiring him to wear thermal gear whenever he wasn't generating significant body heat through to other activities. Kyla glided into the room, her movements more fluid than ever. The pregnancy had enhanced her natural grace, making her appear almost weightless. "Your ingenuity continues to impress me," she purred, her cool breath visible in the chilled air. "Most species would find such adaptations impossible." "Humans are stubborn that way," Tom replied, admiring how the frost patterns on the windows seemed to mirror the increasingly intricate designs appearing naturally on Kyla's skin. "We see impossible situations as personal challenges." Ajax padded in after Kyla, his thick coat now supplemented by a heating vest Tom had designed to keep him comfortable in the colder sections of the cabin. The dog had become exceptionally protective of Kyla, sensing the precious life growing within her. "Your persistence is one of your most attractive qualities," Kyla murmured, closing the distance between them. Despite the room's frigid temperature, heat bloomed wherever their skin made contact. "Along with your remarkable ability to generate warmth," Tom pulled her closer, savoring the exquisite contrast of their body temperatures. "Speaking of warmth, how are you feeling? Or any new developments I should know about?" Kyla guided his hand to her abdomen, where a subtle pulse of energy thrummed beneath her crystalline skin. "The child grows stronger each day, its genetic structure stabilizing in fascinating ways, taking the best of both our species." "Care to elaborate?" Tom asked, intrigued by the foreign sensation under his palm. "Well," Kyla's star-filled eyes sparkled with amusement, "it seems to have inherited your thermal adaptability. The embryo is maintaining its own temperature gradient, independent of my cooling body. It's quite unprecedented." Tom processed this information. "Is that safe for you?" "More than safe, it's perfect." Kyla's expression softened. My people have long theorized that successful hybrid offspring would require both parents' evolutionary advantages. Your human capacity for environmental adaptation, combined with Nixian energy manipulation? She trailed off, distracted by Tom's thumb tracing patterns on her skin. And these patterns? He gestured to the intricate frost-like designs that now covered much of her visible skin. They're beautiful, but I've never seen anything like them. They're birthing marks, Kyla explained, her voice taking on a husky quality. They appear when a Nixian mother's body is preparing to channel significant amounts of energy. Traditionally, they're considered quite attractive. Is that so? Tom's voice dropped lower as he traced one of the patterns with his finger, causing Kyla to shiver despite her cold-adapted physiology. Very much so, she breathed. In fact, the marks are most sensitive when... She gasped as his warm hand followed the pattern up her arm. Ajax, displaying his usual impeccable timing, decided this would be an excellent moment to investigate the kitchen's warmer climate. Later, as they lay entwined in specially designed thermal blankets that maintained their ideal temperature differential, Kyla traced the frost patterns that had temporarily transferred to Tom's skin during their passion. You know, she mused, on my world, this would be considered a remarkable sign. The patterns? The fact that your skin can temporarily accept our markings, it's another indication of human adaptability. Most species would suffer frost damage from such intimate contact with a Nixian during pregnancy. Tom chuckled. I'll take that as a compliment. You should? Kyla propped herself up on one elbow, her hair cascading down like a frozen waterfall. Though I must admit, these ongoing adaptations present certain challenges, such as... Well, she bit her lip in a gesture she'd adopted from him. Nixian pregnancies typically last only 3 months, but given the hybrid nature of our child, we're in uncharted territory. The rate of my biological changes suggests accelerated development, but my body's demands for energy, particularly thermal energy, will continue to increase. She traced a finger down his chest, leaving a trail of frost that quickly melted, which means I'll need more frequent contact with your heat. Tom caught her hand, bringing it to his lips despite its Arctic temperature. I think I can handle that challenge. I thought you might say that. Kyla's smile turned mischievous. Though you should know, as the pregnancy progresses, my temperature will drop even further. We'll need to be creative about maintaining contact. Creativity is another human specialty, Tom murmured, pulling her closer despite the intense cold radiating from her skin. Along with generating heat, their laughter mingled in the frigid air, creating tiny ice crystals that caught the light like diamonds. The next morning, Tom woke to find the bedroom transformed. Kyla's influence on the environment had grown stronger overnight, creating elaborate ice formations that spiraled across the ceiling and walls. The patterns matched those on her skin, turning their sleeping chamber into a crystalline cave of extraordinary beauty. Sorry about the redecorating, Kyla said sheepishly, watching him examine the changes. The child's energy is becoming harder to contain during sleep. Tom touched one of the ice formations, amazed to find it warm despite its appearance. Don't apologize, this is incredible. He turned to her with a grin. Though we might need to reinforce the structural supports if this keeps up. Always thinking practically, Kyla teased, but her expression was full of admiration. Most would be frightened by such manifestations. Frightened? This is amazing. Tom's enthusiasm was genuine. Our child is already showing us what it's capable of. Speaking of which, he placed his hand on her abdomen, feeling the now familiar pulse of energy. Have you given any thought to names? Kyla's expression turned thoughtful. On Nyx, we typically wait until birth to name our children. The name is chosen based on the energy patterns they exhibit. She covered his hand with hers. But perhaps we could blend our traditions? Choose a name that honors both heritage? I'd like that. Tom pulled her into his arms, no longer noticing the cold. Though we should probably focus on reinforcing the cabin first. At this rate, we'll be living in an ice palace by the time the baby arrives. Would that be so terrible? Kyla's eyes twinkled with mischief. You did say the humans can adapt to anything. That we can, Tom agreed, kissing her despite the frost that formed on his lips. That we certainly can. Outside, the aurora borealis had become a constant presence, responding to the growing life within Kyla. The lights danced across the snow in patterns that matched those on her skin, turning their corner of this alien world into something magical. A place where the impossible became possible, where love truly could conquer all barriers, even those of biology and space. The final weeks of Kyla's pregnancy transformed the cabin into a spectacular crystalline sanctuary. Ice formations pulsed with internal warmth, responding to the growing life within her. Tom had reinforced the walls with energy-conducting panels that channeled the excess power into useful systems, turning their home into a self-sustaining marvel of hybrid technology. Your engineering skills rival those of our most advanced builders, Kyla observed, watching Tom adjust the latest installation. Her body temperature had dropped to levels that would flash freeze most liquids, yet the patterns on her skin glowed with an inner fire that defied the cold. Necessity breeds innovation, he replied, securing the final connection. His thermal suit hummed quietly, protecting him from the extreme cold that now pervaded most of their living space. Though I never expected to be converting crystalline energy into power for my coffee maker. Kyla laughed, the sound creating delicate ice chimes in the air. Speaking of unexpected developments, she guided his hand to her abdomen, where the energy pulses had grown strong enough to create visible auroras around her body. The little one is particularly active today. Tom felt the familiar surge of wonder as their child's energy responded to his touch, warming despite the Arctic temperatures surrounding them. Ajax, who had taken to sleeping, pressed against Kyla's side, perked up at the activity, his heating vest glowing softly in the crystalline light. The birthing chamber's ready, Tom said, referring to the specially prepared room where their child would enter the world, though I'm still amazed by how quickly everything has progressed. Nixian pregnancies accelerate when conditions are optimal. Kyla's star-filled eyes sparkled with meaning. And thanks to your enthusiastic participation in maintaining those conditions, our child has developed faster than even I expected. Tom felt heat rise to his face despite the cold. Their need for frequent intimate contact to balance their temperature differentials had led to some creative solutions, each more exciting than the last. The contrast between his heat and her cold had become an intoxicating dance of opposites, creating energy patterns that fed directly into their child's development. The traditional Nixian birthing ritual requires a perfect balance of thermal energies, Kyla continued, trailing frost patterns across his chest through the thermal suit. Usually, this is achieved through complex technological means, but we've managed something far more natural. Natural is one word for it, Tom murmured, remembering their latest temperature balancing session that morning. The ice formations in their bedroom still bore the impressions of their passion. Kyla's expression turned thoughtful. On my world, this would be celebrated as a legendary union. A human not only surviving intimate contact with a pregnant Nixian, but actually thriving on it. It defies all known biological limitations. Maybe that's because your people never really gave humans a chance, Tom suggested, pulling her closer, despite the extreme cold radiating from her skin. We're remarkably adaptable when properly motivated. Motivated indeed. Kyla's cool lips brushed his neck, sending shivers down his spine that had nothing to do with temperature. Though I must admit, your particular brand of motivation has exceeded all my expectations. Their moment was interrupted by a sudden pulse of energy that rippled through the cabin, causing the ice formations to glow with internal light. Ajax barked excitedly, sensing the change in atmosphere. That's new, Tom observed, watching as the aurora borealis outside intensified in response. The child is establishing its own energy patterns, Kyla explained, her voice filled with wonder. It's combining your thermal adaptability with Nixian energy manipulation in ways I've never seen before. She paused, placing both hands on her crystalline abdomen. I think it's almost time. Tom's heart raced. Now? Oh, but I thought we had another week at least. The little one appears to have inherited your impatience as well, Kyla teased, though her expression was serious. We should move to the birthing chamber. The energy buildup will be significant. As if to emphasize her point, another pulse rippled through the cabin, stronger this time. The ice formations began to sing, creating harmonics that made Ajax howl in response. Tom scooped Kyla into his arms, marveling at how light she felt despite the advanced pregnancy. Her body had become almost ethereal in the final stages, as if she were transforming into pure energy contained within a crystalline shell. The birthing chamber, when they entered it, began to respond to Kyla's presence. The carefully arranged energy conductors pulsed in rhythm with her breathing, creating a cocoon of balanced temperatures. Ajax took up his position by the door, standing guard as he had been trained to do. "Remember what we discussed about the ritual?" Kyla asked as Tom helped her settle onto the specially prepared platform. "Maintain physical contact to balance the thermal exchange, no matter how extreme the temperatures become," he recited, taking his position beside her. "And keep sending warm thoughts about coffee and tropical beaches." Kyla's laugh turned into a gasp as another energy wave surged through her. "Your humor, even now, it's so perfectly human." She gripped his hand tightly. "Promise me something? Anything. When our child asks about how we met, tell them everything. How you found me buried in the snow, how you shared your warmth without hesitation, how your human heart was big enough to love someone from another world." Her star-filled eyes locked with his. "Tell them that sometimes the coldest moments can lead to the warmest beginnings." Tom leaned down to kiss her, ignoring the frost that formed on his lips. "I promise, though I think the evidence will be pretty clear, considering they'll probably be able to create ice sculptures with a thought and survive both Arctic and tropical conditions." Speaking of which, Kyla's body began to glow with intense energy. "I believe our little hybrid is ready to make their appearance." The birthing chamber filled with swirling patterns of heat and cold, creating a perfect balance of extremes. As their child prepared to enter the world, Tom held tightly to Kyla's hand, marveling at how a simple act of rescue in a snowstorm had led to this moment, a moment that would change not just their lives, but perhaps the understanding between their species forever. Ajax's howl joined the harmonic resonance of the ice formations, creating a symphony of celebration that echoed across the frozen landscape. Above them, the aurora borealis erupted in a display of unprecedented beauty, announcing to the world that something extraordinary was about to be born, a child of fire and ice, of earth and Nyx, of love that defied the cold void of space itself. The birth of their son transformed the birthing chamber into a spectacular aurora of swirling energies. As the final surge of power subsided, Tom and Kyla gazed in wonder at their perfect hybrid child. His skin shimmered with a subtle iridescence, neither purely human nor entirely Nyxian, but something magnificently unique. "He's beautiful," Tom whispered, watching as their son's skin temperature shifted, adapting instantly to match whoever held him. His eyes, when they opened, revealed the same star-filled depths as his mother's, but with flecks of warm brown that mirrored his father's gaze. "Nyxus," Kyla breathed, cradling their newborn. "His name is Nyxus. In my language, it means one who bridges worlds." She looked up at Tom, her eyes gleaming with joy. "Do you approve?" "It's perfect," Tom agreed, wrapping his arms around them both. Ajax approached cautiously, his tail wagging as he sniffed the new addition to their family. The baby reached out with tiny fingers that left frost patterns on the dog's nose, causing Ajax to sneeze in surprise. The cabin had stabilized in the aftermath of the birth, the ice formations now pulsing with a gentle, steady rhythm that matched their son's breathing. The temperature variations that had been so extreme during the pregnancy settled into a comfortable gradient that accommodated all of them. "He's already mastering thermal control," Kyla observed proudly as Nyxus adjusted his body temperature to create a perfect balance between his parents' touch. "And look, he has your determination." Indeed, the baby was already attempting to lift his head, his tiny features set in an expression of concentration that was purely Tom. His hair, a fascinating mix of his father's dark brown and his mother's midnight blue, seemed to shimmer with its own inner light. "The legends of my people speak of such children," Kyla continued, her voice soft with wonder. "Hybrid offspring who would possess the strength of both bloodlines, but they were always considered myths. Until now." Tom watched as Nixus created tiny auroras around his fingers, playing with the energy as naturally as a human baby would grasp at toys. "He's gonna keep us on our toes, isn't he?" "Oh, most definitely," Kyla laughed, the sound creating musical ice chime that made their son giggle in response. "But then, that's what humans do best, isn't it? Adapt to the impossible." Speaking of adaptation, Tom gestured to the window where the aurora borealis had taken on new patterns that seemed to dance in rhythm with their son's movements. "I think he's already redecorating." The landscape outside had indeed begun to change. The endless snowfields now sparkled with crystalline formations that pulsed with inner warmth, creating microclimates that could support both human and Isnexian life forms. It was as if their son's very existence was reshaping the world around them, creating a space where different species could thrive together. "He's building bridges," Kyla explained, watching the transformation with pride. "Just as we did. Every barrier between our species that was thought unbreakable, biological incompatibility, extreme temperature differences, energy manipulation limitations. We shattered them all. Through the power of love and coffee," Tom quipped, earning another musical laugh from his mate. "And persistence," Kyla added, reaching up to trace the frost patterns that had become permanent marks on Tom's skin where their energies had merged repeatedly. "Your human capacity for adaptation, combined with Nixian energy manipulation, we've created something entirely new." Nixus chose that moment to demonstrate his unique abilities, creating a miniature snowstorm above his head that sparkled with warm light. Ajax barked appreciatively at the display, his tail wagging furiously. "You know, Trey," Tom said thoughtfully, watching their son play with forces that should have been beyond his control. "When I found you buried in that snow, I thought I was just saving a life. I never imagined—" "That you were reshaping the future of both our species?" Kyla finished for him. "That's the beauty of human instinct, my love. You act from the heart, and the universe bends to accommodate your determination." Their son yawned, his tiny display of power fading as he snuggled into his mother's arms. The temperature in the room automatically adjusted to create the perfect environment for his rest, another unconscious demonstration of his hybrid abilities. "We should rest too," Tom suggested, noting Kyla's tired but radiant expression. "Something tells me we're going to need all our energy to keep up with this little miracle." As they settled into their specially designed family bed, with Ajax taking his protective position nearby, Tom reflected on the journey that had brought them here. From finding a frozen figure in the snow to creating a new form of life that could thrive in any environment, their love had proven stronger than the laws of nature itself. "What are you thinking?" Kyla asked softly, as Nixus slept peacefully between them. "I'm thinking about how grateful I am that Ajax decided to dig in that particular spot," Tom replied, reaching across their son to take her hand, "and how sometimes the coldest moments can lead to the warmest futures." "Humans," Kyla teased, her eyes twinkling with starlight, "always finding hope in the most frozen places." "Well, it worked out pretty well this time, didn't it?" Outside, the aurora borealis continued its celebration, painting the sky with the story of their love. The crystalline formations that had spread from their cabin created a new kind of ecosystem, one that proved different species could not only coexist, but thrive together. And in the warm cocoon of their family bed, surrounded by the perfect balance of heat and cold, Tom and Kyla held their miraculous son, living proof that love truly could conquer all barriers, even those written into the very code of life itself. Their story, which began with a rescue in the snow, had become a testament to the power of human determination and alien wisdom combined. As they drifted off to sleep, their son's peaceful breathing creating tiny ice crystals that danced with warm light, they knew that this was just the beginning of an even greater adventure. For in their love, they had found not just personal happiness, but a way to bridge the gap between worlds, creating a future where the impossible became possible, and where being buried in the snow could lead to the warmest kind of awakening.